Yo, my sovereigns, what up? This is Boba Fett, uncensored on the internet, with episode 167 of Splinterlands 101. Joining us once again, co-hosts of the show, finest gentleman who ever lived, chairman of the DAO, Matt Clark.
Howdy, howdy.
The man behind the Pouffet Poussey and behind the red flashing lights, Geotrix.
Hello, hello. Excuse the camera stuff. It's just for one episode.
Normally it's red and blue flashing lights, isn't it, Geo, that light you up?
Oh, wait, I'm confused. Is that better? Like the what? Blue?
But
What? Oh,
I'm just a police chase. I'm picturing, the start of Naked Gun with the sirens and and
you actually had me looking for blue lights, and there is one blue light on the camera. Like there, I was like, wait, what? I was like, how'd you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Looks like a dash cam.
Yes.
Good to see you guys, gentlemen.
So what's new other than the obvious? Land 1.75 is the main talking point. Have you done any adjustments to your land, either you guys?
Yeah. I understood how things are going to work, and then I didn't. So I went and did a harvest, and then everything changed. I've got a whole lot of wood and not a lot of grain, but research and SPS, and everybody's in the same boat here. So everybody who was harvesting grain is now harvesting one of the other, either grain or one of the other three new resources. But you need all of the resources to harvest at all, and so it's going to be fine. That's there's people I've seen on Discord and on Twitter saying, "What is this? I've got to spend $38 worth of deck on grain to harvest, or $38 worth of grain and stone and wood and ore to harvest $3 worth of SPS." Like, it's not like, why would I do that? And realistically, this is the Wild West. Like this, the whole point is we're building a game where you have an unfettered free market, right? Things are just worth what they're worth. There's no price controls. You can overpay for something, right? That's just the nature of how this works. And we're only a few days from launch, so prices are literally all over the place. So what was happening, I think, for a lot of people is they were set up, they're getting enough grain to harvest their SPS, and that's all fine. Now we've got the situation where they need all the other resources as well, and the SPS just isn't worth that. So a lot of people are pulling their cards off their SPS, off their occupied plots, or they're changing them so that they're harvesting either of the new resources or grain, right, on those occupied plots. Even though you're not getting that doubling because it's occupied, because that's only for SPS, it's still not worth it because the price of SPS is so low, right? So relative to the cost to buy the resources that you need to harvest it on, and that's very early jitters, right? This is just the market finding itself. Because when nobody's in control, things can wildly fluctuate, especially early on. Now, who's sneeze? Okay. Excuse me. I guess the point is, as people shut down their SPS farms on land, what's going to happen is the SPS available to the people who are remaining is they're going to get more SPS, because when you're farming, you get an allocation from the it's total PP harvesting SPS versus your PP harvesting SPS. So if a lot of people, if 90% of it goes away, then the people who are still harvesting SPS are going to get 10 times as much for the same amount of the other resources that it costs them.
Here comes Dave.
Good stuff. So those prices will balance out. Right, that's the whole point of the market, and then it's just about finding your niche and the like. So it's bedlam at the moment. I'm really just sitting back and waiting like a week.
Yeah.
Dave, thanks for joining us. Now, Dave and I were chatting in Discord as we were queuing up this episode with the other guys, and I just said, "Oh, Dave, if you're around, here's a link." So he didn't even say he'd come on. It's just great to see him. Actually, he didn't even confirm. So I've given him no notice, no preparation, but he's great on the fly. So, Dave, thank you for joining us, mate.
Happy to be here. Anytime I can talk about Splinterlands, I enjoy it. So that's cool.
Absolutely. So Dave's our new Chief Operating Officer, and he's going to be taking a lot of the heavy lifting off Yabba so that he can focus back onto game development, which is what he really loves, and strategy and direction, and keeping an eye on what other people are doing, because a lot of the cool stuff we've got, like the flywheel, have been borrowed from other places. As far as I know, we're the only product-backed stablecoin, DEC, but it's really good to keep an eye out on everything else that's going on, because it's a rapidly developing place. So we're just talking about land and how everything's sort of up in the air and price discovery at the moment, Dave. And a lot of people saying, well, if I'm harvesting my SPS, it's going to cost me X amount of these new resources to harvest Y amount of SPS. It's not worth it for me to do that, and why would I lose money like that? And sort of panicking a little bit. And I'm just sort of saying, this is when it is the Wild West and it is very, very new. Everything's going to be in flux, right? Everything. SPS is different because there are alternate sources of SPS. Grain is different because there's a backlog of grain that people have harvested before. So grain's different than any of the others. SPS is different than any of the others. Then the new three are all like, I don't even know if I have any of the new resources, because they're kind of locked behind needing to have some in order to harvest them. I'm giving it a week. I'm not panicking. I'm not changing anything. I'm just giving it a week, and then I'm going to just see where all the prices are. Likely pull some of my SPS harvesting off, but with the lower with the fewer people harvesting SPS, that should increase the amount that everybody who remains gets for their harvest, and it's just going to balance out and equalize. But this is what happens when you don't have somebody in control. This is central. There's no centralized control here. This is literally just a free market. We're probably one of the freest that's ever existed, and it's exciting to see where it's going to go. It's bedlam at the moment, but it's going to settle down, and then there are going to be opportunities for the people that are really paying attention and have the resources to take advantage of them.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I think that the thing that I look at is if it costs me, like, let's say I can get 1,000 SPS for all these particular, wood, stone, and ore, right? If I could just sell the wood, stone, and ore in the ratio that I would need to get the SPS and get 2,000, well, I'll just sell the resources, get the 2,000, and not worry about the 1,000. Like, no big deal, right? So what will happen is the market's going to adjust. If that's the case, then people aren't going to grab the SPS. They will sell. That will drop down the value, and then at some point it reaches equilibrium. Just like you said, it will be a true free market. So I know a few people were panicking. Even a couple of people on the team were like, "Oh, this is a problem." I'm like, I really don't think it's a problem. In other words, this is how it's supposed to be. And honestly, that's part of like strategy, right? Like which resource is worth more. Like I had to go through and do my own matrix and figure out, which one is the most undervalued relative to the others and which one's the most overvalued. And, in my head, I'm thinking, maybe I want to, just throw out, because I think everybody kind of knows that ore is the highest one. So maybe I want to swap my ore to get more wood right now, while ore is overvalued and say wood's undervalued, and constantly do those ratios. So, at the end of the day, I think this is extremely exciting. And the one thing that not only will it balance, but it will also, it's kind of similar with the flywheel in the game. As we in the future create resources or use of these resources in other areas, like Matt was talking about, on the show the other day on the town hall, that's going to be in that, like, people are going to want what we can use on land. So if people want it, right, then they're going to have to go figure out how to get it, which means they're going to have to put more production power, more deck, more of their resources, their own, financial resources behind making it happen if they want it. So that's actually how it should work.
Yeah, for sure. And that was a great town hall with Yappa talking about how he would like to in the future move toward a preloading where you say, I want to harvest this amount from this plot, and then you pay the resources in and then wait for it to be, rather than at the moment it's you can get locked behind the resource requirements to actually do the harvest. So you can say, I've got these and I've got these, but I need all of this to get them. It's just a different vibe, I think. But it is really interesting with the new resources, because really the only use case is to sell them to people who need them to in order to harvest their own resources. That's really the only benefit to harvesting them at the moment, is actually having them. That's their only use case. There's no in-game use case. It's really just, I want them so that I can use them myself to harvest, or I want them so that I can throw them in the relevant liquidity pool and grow my percentage of the liquidity pool. So I think knowing that there is imminent use for those other resources beyond just inland and harvesting those and others, I think that is good, because we got to a point with grain where people are sort of saying, okay, I have 20 million grain now. I got a big position in the liquidity pool. Like I'm stable now. I've got enough, and now it's great to see that those people are assured that eventually there is a use case for it, as we've now seen with grain. Okay, yeah, but I'm glad I stockpiled all that. So we want that for the other resources as well. We want people to say, yes, there is going to be a use case for this down the track. So,
right. And it's really just a kind of a micro view at what the whole game is, right? We create demand for things. It's got to come from somewhere, right? If somebody wants, let's say, a card, and the only way to get it is with grain, wood, stone, iron, whatever, or research, or whatever the mechanism it is to get it, whether it's in rank play, whether it's in land, whatever the case may be. But if we create things of value that people want, it's going to flow through the whole system, and that land is just another piece of that. And I'm personally extremely excited about it. I love this new update that we have.
Yeah, totally agree. So how are you going integrating in with the team? Are you met? Are you close physically to where all Bob's in Mexico, and Gio and I are 8 hours away from each other in Australia, which makes us basically neighbours. Physically, are you close to the guys? Have you been to headquarters? Is there been any of that travel stuff? Is that a thing that you can do? Go to the barbecue or anything, or is it still just remote?
No, everything's online. Matt's up in Philadelphia, which is, I don't know, a little more than 80 miles. It's probably a 15, 20-hour drive. So, that's not going to happen anytime soon. And we have people all over the country, and all, like Cryptomancer's in Japan, and Blaze is down in one of the South American countries, and so we have people all over the place. So no, nobody's close. So, but it doesn't matter. It's actually, it works out fine. We do everything on calls like this. Internally, we use Slack. Yeah, nobody really likes to use the phone, even though I'm still old school. I still like the phones.
Well, maybe Splinterfest 2, that came up in the town hall too. So, like you said, it's unlikely to be this year unless things suddenly really kick off and go crazy. But I think Splinterfest 2 would be fantastic. It was not something I could imagine getting to the first one, just the individual circumstances, my personal circumstances. But I would very much be keen to go to a second one.
I agree. I mean, it was a good time. I went to that, and I think Vegas was a good place because of the security part of it, because, they're used to security. So I think that at least back then, I know they cared about that. I would think that the same thing would apply today. But it would be also cool to go to different parts of the world, and, whether it be Australia, you guys are like way out there, but, also in, Asia, we get a lot of people over in there, and even Europe, so, I'm okay with anywhere. Honestly, I think it's awesome just to, get together and meet the people that you've become friends with online for 7 years. We've known each other. So
That's right, and it all feels so recent. You know, I have a 9-year-old daughter who doesn't know me outside of me not being daily interacting with Splinterlands as a concept, it's just been her entire life. The years go by and you don't even really notice, and you think, oh, the last couple of years I've been. Actually, no, it's not. It's more than the last couple of years. 5 years of Hive since the fork, which was brilliant. That it sucked at the time, and in a way we lost, but then in another way we really won and got free of that. So, and I'm sure you remember that time as it was like living through like a drama on the TV, except you're involved. You're talking to the people who are actually, it's happening. And I remember reassigning our witness votes and trying to make sure that we're, staying ahead of the. Just they need to make a TV season, a season of a TV show, like explaining what happened there, because it was just insane.
Oh, it was.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say I agree. It was.
Yeah. So, what are your big focuses as the chief operating officer? Are you just you see yourself as like the stage manager, just moving the sets around in the background and making sure everything goes okay, or are you pushing for a particular direction, or is there something that's you've always wanted boss battles, so you had to go and get hired just to make it happen? Is there a direction or a push that you're really looking for?
I don't have any bias as to like one way to play versus another way to play. In other words, to me, that's, the numbers will tell that, like how many people want to play one mode versus another mode. You can figure that out. I tend to like to, see both sides of everything, and usually more than both sides, usually 4 or 5 sides. But, my focus is more than, to run the business, my job is the business succeeding. So that means having more revenues coming in than we spend in expenses, and running the business and having a plan. And, obviously I don't come in and day one say, up, everything we're doing is wrong. Let's change everything, right? Like, you just don't do it that way. What you do is you come in, you understand what they're doing. It certainly helps that I've been here 7 years and kind of know everybody and know, where the game's at. So I don't have to listen so much as to 20 people telling me what's the case and trying to decipher it. Like, it's pretty easy to pick up that. A lot of what I'm trying to do, the team is, I think the best way to describe it, they're all passionate. They're all excited about wanting to see things succeed. And they also they've kind of been a little, well, I wouldn't say a little, they've been collegial in the way they make decisions. So it's kind of like those TV shows, where they all get around and they vote, and, and then, the person with the short stick, has to leave and go home, or, whatever the case may be, that's not productive in my opinion. In other words, people that are in sales and marketing should be focused on sales and marketing. People that are on tech should be focused on tech. People that are in support should be, focused on support, art, blah, blah, blah. All the different departments, they need to have a certain degree of responsibility and accountability so that we can all do our part, and I think the way in which it was done, everybody, didn't have it's almost like they each had an idea how to fix it. So if we have a problem, like we weren't getting new players, for instance, that's a perfect example. One person would say, we got to do this. And then another person would say, nope, we have to do this. And then a third person would say, we got to do, the third way. And then they would sit around and argue about it. And then, it would be kind of like brute force as to which one won. There wasn't really a mechanism where somebody said, hey, that's, my job. I'm going to do it. Fire me if I don't do a good job. Right. So my goal will be to bring in that kind of accountability so that, whatever decisions we're making have to be that the people are accountable. If we don't bring in players, then, that's a problem, right? If we don't retain players, that's a problem. And really, what we say, what's my major focus? Obviously, I want to make sure we stay in business. So that's always number one. We're in relatively good shape in terms of financially, especially if we have a decent sale, which I'm pretty sure we're going to do. I mean, I think you guys are going to be pumped about that. Um, and then, it's in my opinion, like 95% of our focus has got to be how do we get new players and retain them, right? Like to me, that's everybody wants like let's make brawls better, let's make survivor mode better, let's make rank play better, let's do this, let's do that, blah blah blah. At the end of the day, we better figure out how to get new players, because if we don't get new players, then I don't know if you heard the town hall, but I brought up the difference between hope and confidence. Hope is when you think something could happen, right? You don't know it. You're probably not even sure it's going to happen, but you think it's possible, right? So I hope this happens, right? I hope SPS goes back to $1. I hope we get new players, right? That's different than having the confidence that it's going to happen, right? Like you actually see the people coming in, you actually see the marketing plans, you actually see people enjoying the game and happy and referring their friends and seeing our retention rate go from 3% to 30%. Those are the things that are going to give people confidence. And once they have confidence, I mean, like everybody's like, oh, why is our token not going up? Well, I mean, it's pretty simple why our token haven't gone up. We haven't had any new players in a long time, right? So the existing players kind of hanging in there. Some of them have left, but it's like the flywheel in reverse, right? More money going out of the system than coming in is going to naturally drag you down. But the flip side of that is, our system is built really well so that as we bring in new players, as people start to see that, oh, shit, we're at, 2,000 new players a month, and then 4,000 new players a month, and 5,000 new players a month. And you start to see the impact that people are buying assets. It's already starting a little bit. Now all of a sudden, it's not words that matter. It's, people just become naturally confident. And when they're confident, then the word spreads. That's, I mean, so that's really what my focus is. So, so what you boil it all down to, it comes down to new players. What are we going to do to attract new players? I don't believe, like you said, do I have like some secret agenda, as, like whether I want some guild brawl or, something like that. No, all I want new players. So if we don't get new players, then we haven't done our job, right? So whatever we're doing, like people are like, oh, this new mode that we're going to have for the story mode, where people come in and they learn, and I'm sure that's certainly an increase over what we had, right? So
Yeah.
is that going to be enough to move the needle? I don't know, but I'm gonna find out. And if I doubt it's ever going to be enough to move the needle for where we want, because I want a lot. Like I literally want like a 40 or 50% attrition rate, and I want tens of thousands of players a month coming in. And then I think we now have, the flywheel really buzzing. So that's my goal. So it's like I tell people all the time, like I'm not the guy that's going to come out and say, oh, buy SPS now because it's going to go to 3 cents or 5 cents or a nickel. All I say is if we ever get to a dime, we're probably going to go to $1, because whatever took us to a dime, it's going to take us to $1. So because I'm going to eliminate the systemic problems that we have, and every business has them. So it's not like Splinterlands is bad. In fact, I would even say Splinterlands is great, because how many businesses can survive without bringing in new players for a year and a half? If you think about it, hardly any. So that tells you the loyalty, that tells you the quality of the base underneath it, not just the people, but the depth of the system. So it's just a matter of they just didn't have this one little piece down. So, my job is to make it, fix that.
And for those who don't know, Yabba has been keeping track of stats like you wouldn't believe, like numbers all over the place. So how many new visitors to the site every day? How many of those then go through to buy a spell book? How many of those then retain for however long? Like the stats and the spreadsheets are insane, and it's been tracking. This has been tracked for literally from the outset, from the get go. So we know what works, what doesn't work. We've done we've learnt all of these hard lessons that other up and coming projects haven't. They've still yet to learn. So there's so much information that guides the decisions that are being made at Splinterlands. So I think for me, it's the trick is to trigger that FOMO, because I'm looking at Chaos Legion packs, and right now they're at 49 cents, and that's higher than they've been in a long time. Now it's a lot lower than what they were originally selling for, but they haven't been sort of that high for a while. And I kind of feel like we need to get back to the finite nature of these resources. It feels like we're drowning in Chaos Legion packs, and it feels like we're drowning in cheap land. But as they go, and as they fall into diamond hands, I don't sell my land. I don't sell Chaos Legion packs, right? I'm not a seller, certainly not at these prices. Maybe I've offered something outrageous. But I use my land. I open my Chaos Legion packs and I use those cards. And I think what we need is for people to arrive and realize that, hang on, I'm early here. I'm early in this thing. It's been around 7 years. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It would have collapsed 3 or 4 times over if it was in any way a pump and dump. It just wouldn't have had this longevity as a project. So I'm here now, and I'm looking at these land plots. And originally they sold for this, and they're not much more than what they originally sold for. I mean, they took the round trip, and now they're still, not much more than what they sold for. I can grab up a heap of these, and that's a good gamble, right? Like, that's, even if you're not interested in playing the game, that's a good gamble. Chaos Legion packs, they're going for an eighth of what they originally sold for, and people were buying this very same thing for 8 times the price of what they are now. That's a big discount. I can get that, and what we need to, I really feel, is trigger that FOMO, crack those wallets open, not just from new players, but people who are already here. And say, I know this game. I know that we're on the right path. I know that Yabba's not looking to just leg it and go, retire on a beach somewhere with a whole lot of stolen cash. Like the monorail episode in The Simpsons. Lyle Langley off on the plane. We know that's not what's going on here. So I think we need to get excited ourselves, the existing player base, as well as let's bring in the new guys. But we also need to think, okay, I'm not going to, if I log in tomorrow and see Chaos Legion packs at 60 cents, well, there's a lost opportunity, isn't it? Because they're 49 cents right now.
Yeah.
So we need that FOMO.
Yeah, it's happening. Whether people are realizing it or not, it's already happening. Like the totems, for instance, the common totems were $6 not that long ago. Now they're like $11, right? So, they just stealthily doubled, over, let's say, the last 30 days. Like you were talking about the Chaos Legion packs, they're 50 cents. I can remember not that long ago, they were at a quarter. I bought a max level Immortalis for $100, gold foil, $100 max for $25 a BCX. It's like, you can't pry that out of my hands for less than 500 and probably not less than 1,000. So, and you were around, and Boba Fett, I'm not sure if you were around. Were you around when J69 was here?
I was here, but I really wasn't that sort of politically active. I didn't know a lot of who people were. I've been around since the beginning. I bought some of the first alpha packs, but it took me a while to actually become a player rather than an investor.
Gotcha. Yeah, like when J69 was here, it was the same kind of situation that, we had where we all knew he was selling. There was a negative vibe that he had thrown out. We thought, some people were scared out. He's going to sue Splinterlands and he's going to take all their money. And, he threw all that. And we were getting like we were sitting around like we're talking now about, Chaos Legion packs at 50 cents. We were talking about, Untamed packs or beta packs. I forget which one at the time, but they were dirt cheap. I remember deck was like 30 cents on the dollar back then. It was cheap. It was cheap. It was more cheap at that time than it ever got during this, this drop down. So, it's the same thing each time, like, because this is I'm in the financial space, like in, 40 years, been around markets. And so I know like the psychology of the markets. And one beautiful thing about the way crypto is it's like it was back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, in the stock markets, wild swings on both, because you didn't have the regulators, putting, cushions up on each side, right? Like, basically too big to fail and sinking money. And so you have these big wild swings, which is bad if you kind of don't know what you're doing, but it's awesome if you can understand what's important. So, as Matt just said, I mean, we've been here 7 years. Everybody's really comfortable with the fact that Yaba's, a straight up awesome guy who cares about people and wants to do the right thing. You can obviously see that Splinterlands has put a lot of money into developing the game since the day we first started, like all three of us. If you guys remember, we bought packs of cards with, just pictures. We didn't even have stats. We didn't have abilities. I didn't even know how to play the game. I'd never played one of these games before. So, I mean, we've come a long way when you look at it. Like 7 years, it seems like a long time, but when you look at it and say, geez, look at what they've done in 7 years, that's like really amazing. So as far as getting the FOMO, going back to Matt's point, I don't even worry about that. Honestly, like I know what we're putting in this set. I think you guys are going to be really pumped about several aspects in terms of the picture quality is awesome, which I think they previewed a little bit on the town hall. Like, the artwork is amazing. The way in which these cards play, like everybody who's tested it, even grumpy guys like Clayboyne, who's working as a Dow tester, but on the team, he's typically like, I wouldn't say negative, but he's like unenthusiastic sometimes. Even he's like, dude, this is really good, like.
Yeah, so in the break we just caught up on a couple of things, and it was interesting how the conversation was like, came in a couple of times, the creation of the FOMO. And I wanted to let you guys know, you actually did it to me last week, Matt, when you mentioned that you'd recently checked the Chaos Legion and it was up from 30 to 49. And then I checked my fungus flingers. Dave, when they announced the survival thing, I looked at two cards, the Mark's Rat and the fungus flinger. Mark's Rat being neutral, I thought this, because you only need one BCX of a martyr card. So this card's going to become, so I went and had and already the Mark's Rat had tripled, but the fungus flinger hadn't moved, being Earth specific. So I bought 500 and something fungus flingers for anywhere from 5.5 cents up to 7. I didn't buy, so lower than 7 cents basically. And when Matt mentioned that last week, I checked them and they're up to like 35 cents. So they 4x'd already. That's a good thing. But with that, I went and checked the Chaos Legion, and after we finished recording last week, I actually bought another 100 packs. So,
nice.
Yeah, you FOMO'd me out on our own show, Matt.
Yep. I get you.
Yeah, so FOMO, and that's where you were leading in that direction as well, Dave. We're talking about creating a bit of FOMO.
Yeah, I remember when Matt was probably one of the first that, back in the day when he was buying up all those flash columns, we were scratching our heads, me and the, people I talked to back then. I mean, he was paying like 16, 20 cents a piece for them, and all the other cards in that category were 2 or 3 cents or 5 cents. They were, he was paying a substantial premium, and he wasn't just buying a few. I mean, he consistently just bought and bought and bought and bought. And then all of a sudden, one day the market, wind comes at our back, and all of a sudden people, are rushing out to grab things. And what do you know, those flesh columns just, I mean, they just took off. I don't even know how high they got, Matt. You could probably tell us that, like, how high did they get?
Yeah, they've been, I think I worked out at one point I had $3 million worth of flesh columns in regular and gold, just based on like the total BCX. When you have 20,000 BCX of something and it's worth $4 or $5, or they did get quite high. I'll tend to buy in spits and spurts. But the flesh column psychology, for me, I thought, look, if I move really heavy on one card, and there's a lot of people who've done this with various different cards since, and I'm not going to claim to be the guy who invented cornering something. But I thought, look, if there's one card, how can I put it? marketing is, as we're saying now, you pay for marketing, right? You pay to get your name attached to something. And I thought, well, if I'm known as, if I'm sticking out from the crowd and known as the guy who stacked all these flesh golems, and people are streaming and they're opening an alpha pack and they're, oh, look, there's a flesh golem. Oh, we'll sell that to Matt Clark. Your name comes up, right? And it's just about that constant repetition from a personal marketing perspective. Now, I didn't know, and I still don't know what benefits or I guess, I get just how that's going to be good for me in the future.
Well, I can think of one. I mean,
what's that?
Just on a touch of that, a light side, but would you be chairman of the DAO today if you weren't first the flesh golem guy?
Exactly. This is my point. And at the time, I'm not thinking, oh, there's going to be a DAO one day, and I'd like to make a pitch at being the chairman. Like that was never the goal. But I thought if we're in a situation where pretty much everybody's anonymous, everybody's using a screen name, everybody's keeping their face off the camera and the like, but you've got one guy who's not only made himself famous by stacking a specific card, is also using his actual name, and Dave, you and I, share in that, using your full name, and getting his face out there. That then becomes you become like a focal point where people say, well, there's this guy, and I don't know why I like him. And they don't even realize that the part of their mechanisms, their mental heuristics, is to say, I trust people more when they're using their name and they're not just Dragon Smasher 3000. And I trust them more when I can see their face, right? And now I know something about this guy. There's something I can talk to him about. If we're stuck in conversation, I can ask him how his Flesh Golem army's going, right? So it's such an opener. And you don't know what and I talked to CTR PCH about this over the years a lot at our meetups. We do a monthly meetup, Dave, here in Adelaide. And we talk about this a lot. You don't know what the opportunities are going to be, but you just want to position yourself to take advantage of them. And I thought if Splinterlands goes big, I don't want to just have a lot of assets in a game that goes big. That's great, but that will be the case for others. And there are people who are far, far bigger than me. You look at Brave Tofu, you look at Vugtus, you look at Crypto Eater, but you can't look at them. They could be in the same room. You wouldn't even know that's the guy, right? Crypto Eater I've met in person, and he's lovely and great. We had a hitter pool, he and Hollizer and I many years ago. But I think what you want to do is aim in that direction, not even knowing what the benefits are going to be. And I still don't know what the benefits are of being the chairman of the DAO. Like to me personally, all it's been is filling out paperwork and talking to doxing myself to various different exchanges and organizations and the law firm and all of that. So it's again hasn't been of benefit to me personally as yet. And I'm not looking to cash in at any point, but I guess notoriety is its own reward in many ways. It doesn't need to be cash.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, in that particular case, you will always be the guy, in my opinion, that led us to that type of mindset, right? Like you did something that nobody else thought of at that time. Since that time, there have been people that have tried to do similar things, and it's always like, hey, I'm going to do what Matt Clark wants. So, that is that's something nobody can ever take away from it. Even if you were to leave, we still would bring it up. Just like we still bring up J69, not in a positive way, but it's like part of our history, right? So you are part of history. So, and then and going back to the FOMO part, I think that I think how to put this. We overproduced our assets for Chaos Legion, but prior to that, we pretty much kept our assets somewhat in line with our player base. And then what happened was with Chaos Legion, we got way out of whack because we thought we had more players than we actually had. In the sense that, you had huge bot farms basically running, buying tons of assets, and they could easily just turn off with no problem. Just a few guys, not like a bunch of people. So we've kind of worked through that. And I understand that, there's people that came in on Chaos Legion and maybe they paid an average of $1.50 a pack, let's say. And so they're still down 75% less whatever they've made back, from all the, I mean, we've been able to play those packs for a long time. And I bought as many packs as most. I bought like 50,000 packs. So it's not like, I'm not the guy that's complaining about it. In fact, the way I look at it is we didn't even overproduce. We overproduced them for the time, but not based on where I think we'll be down the future, because essentially everything's relative to the size of the base you have. If we're going to stay, 5,000 player, entity, and that's it, and that's all we're ever going to be is a 5,000 player entity, then sure, we made way too many Chaos Legion packs, and it's going to take us a long time to work through it. But if we start bringing in 5,000 new players a month, and now all of a sudden we get hundreds of thousands and possibly even millions of players down the road, I mean, the Jin O'Shaughnessy's are going to seem like they were short printed. The flesh columns are really going to be short printed. The Rebellion packs, we're already seeing what's happening there. They're actually trading at a premium, which I don't think anybody ever thought could happen. And that doesn't even count what you got for the airdrops. That doesn't count what you got for playing the cards the whole time. So people have been profitable that bought the Rebellion packs. They don't even realize it, I don't think, as a community yet. Part of this is relatively new in the past couple of months. But, FOMO kicks in. It's almost like in the markets where you have an inflection point where things go from going down to going up. That's the inflection point, that turn at the bottom. And a lot of times it's not easy to spot. Like, it's only easy to spot in the rearview mirror. So, even though, we've seen Rebellion packs go from 30 cents to 50 cents, let's say. I mean, Chaos Legion go 30 cents to 50 cents, even though we see Rebellion packs now go over their initial price, even though we're seeing deck back almost to 90%, there. I mean, we got a whole brand new set coming up that has mechanics in it that we've never had. It's from a play design. It's going to be cool. I think I'm going to make sure I don't overshare, but I know I think Matt said, why don't you guys tell me so I don't overshare? What did he announce during the town hall?
He was talking about the summoners in Conclave Arcana having the capacity to, it was some of the summoners in Conclave Arcana being, say, a dwarf summoner or an elf summoner, and then that summoner can summon not only from their splinter, but also any dwarf from any other splinter
of the same archetype.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So the same. It's like races. I don't know if we're going to stick with races, but so that I think is brilliant, particularly in something like Modern, where if you've only got 2 editions and then you're going a bit higher up the ladder, and you've got more restrictions on which splinters are available in a specific match. That depth it's kind of like the 2 splinter summoners that we got going in Rebellion, same sort of vibe. So you can reach out and grab any elf card, and look, that serves a couple of purposes. One, it's really interesting mechanism for Conclave Arcana, and another reason to go strong on that. But also it puts a bomb under some of those old, your Dwarven Wizard, who I love, who does a magic sniper from he was a dice or an orb card, maybe. But he'll be, I'm assuming, he's Dwarven, so he'll be, that summoner will then be able to summon him in Wild, not in Modern, I'm assuming.
Exploding Dwarf is one of your favourites too.
I love Exploding, especially an Equalizer rule set. And this is where, when you mentioned, Bob, when Survival was announced, you say, okay, I know the game. I know that Martyr cards at 1BCX are going to be popular because people are just going to chew through them as they're waiting for them to cool down. I'm going to throw a ton of money at this because I know the game. I know the resources. Let's just do that. All right. And I did a similar thing when Equalizer, the rule set, was announced. Enchanted, what's his name? Can't think of it now, but Vampires and Exploding Dwarfs, and there's another Enchanted Defender. Enchanted Defender, lots of armor, but only 1 health. Thorns. Enchanted Defender, 4 mana, and anything with 1 life is immediately going to be. That's great, right? And so
Yep.
I was buying Max Vampires for $5, and because at the time they're just rewards cards, they're just throwaway rewards cards that people find that, you know, they're not worth anything. You kick them under the rug, you know, don't worry about it. Now, of course, they're really scarce because there's people have them, but they're not letting them go easy. So it's all about being here, establishing yourself, making those decisions, but knowing the game and playing the game on that level. And your rule set announced, okay, now these new summoners have been announced down at Town Hall. If you're watching the Town Hall and you got a bit of dry powder, and then you look back and say, okay, what can I grab here? What can I go heavy on? Maybe the Elven Defender from however long ago, if you're planning to play Wild. Any of those cards, we were talking about in the Town Hall, the discussion of Jared Scar, because the Hippo type cards are also Uland or something they're called.
Yep.
The Hippo type cards are also going to be, there's that summoner in Life Team with the
General
+1 to
Sloan.
range. General Sloan, yeah. So that Hippo type is also going to be, and stuff like that. I think is makes the game more interesting, more exciting, more complex, but in a not in a dauntingly complex or unnecessarily complex way. So yeah, it's good fun, and that's how we play.
Yeah, and the point you bring up is when I started, that's kind of all I did. I mean, I watched the markets more than I played the game. Like I literally knew, where the flesh column was, where the vampire was. I remember buying gold foil vampires for a nickel. Bought a bunch of them, right? And they're not even close to a nickel now. So, and guess what? In the next move up, people are going to find there's not that many gold foil vampires out there. So, when you talk about FOMO, what creates FOMO? If you think about it, it's fear of missing out, right? So it's like we now have an opportunity, and that's kind of what I was going to say with the J69 when he was here. Like we could have bought anything. I remember buying 136 of what was that sneak in white in beta?
The cat.
Yeah. Feral Spirit. Yep. So I bought 136 of those gold foils, from him at burn value, right? Like, I mean, it was ridiculous. I think at burn value was like 50 cents at the time. So I spent like $70, and picked up 136, which is a big chunk of the total supply, that was out there at the time. And, it wasn't like I bought them and then, a week later they were higher, but 6 months, a year later, all of a sudden those things are going for $8-10, and I paid like 50 cents for them. So, FOMO is real. If you kind of understand, like you said, you, to me, that's kind of a bit of a game within a game, like which cards, like those martyr cards. I unlocked quite a few of those myself because of the supply wasn't that large. And I think there's only like 2,000 or 3,000, maybe my number's off on how many, but there's not a ton of them out there. So I think I bought or unlocked like 100 or 150 of them just because for that exact reason you said. I mean, it's the first time we had a martyr card and that was a neutral. So you're not going to be able to buy that from me. I mean, not even $1 would be enough. I mean, honestly, with the quantity that's out there, if this game goes viral and we get 1 million people one day, I mean, how tough are those things going to be? That's how I look at things. So, I'm not going to be the guy that runs out and says, oh, you got to buy everything right now. It's going to go up. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. But I do know that a lot of these assets, are on relatively low levels with the game doing some things really well and some things not as well. The good thing is the things they didn't do well, which is basically, bringing in new players is an easy solution, meaning it's easy to identify. You can measure whether you're succeeding or not. Unlike say art, that's a subjective thing. Like, do our cards need to be prettier or not? And you'll get 100 different opinions. But when you're like, hey, we need more new players, like that's pretty simple. How many players do we have now? How many players do we have a month from now? It's either higher or not, right? If it's higher, we're growing again. And if it's not, then we got to do better. We got to do more things. So the beautiful thing about marketing, there's a lot of things we can do. So again, I don't, like I said, when we get to a dime, we'll hit $1, in my opinion, because the same things will happen. The same thing that happened in 2021 is going to happen. People are going to say, "Oh, they're bringing in 10,000 new players a month over at Splinterlands." The flywheel. They'll all be talking about a flywheel and how there's not enough SPS to go around, and people will be burning their SPS for deck to buy stuff, and then that deck gets consumed to go buy new packs or something, and now some are selling out stuff. I mean, it flips around the other way, and then people are going to say, "Where's the FOMO?" They're going to be like, "Oh man, I wish I would have paid attention back, when we had that show, because at the end of the day, it's not that hard to figure out. We're basically at or near our all-time lows, for the most part across the board. So it's not like anybody has to like majorly pay up for anything, whether it's land, whether it's SPS, whether it's deck, whether it's cards, whether it's new cards, whether it's old cards. I mean, at the end of the day, like even if you look at something like Rebellion, all right, we sold out of them, right? There's no more, right? So are we going to create more demand with this new set? I happen to think there will be. I think there's a lot of people that played Rebellion and Chaos Legion, in Modern, they play just the Chaos Legion. They don't have the Rebellion. So if they want to compete, at a higher level, they're going to need to probably buy some Rebellion, maybe not the whole set, but they're certainly going to have some cards that are going to synergize well, with that new set. And, in my opinion, that's most people that have a lot of stuff, they really don't want to let it go, especially guys like, like what Matt was talking about or what you were talking about, Boba Fett, where where you buy a couple hundred of something to take a chance. Like you didn't take a chance on a card game that's still relatively small in the world to make 10%, right? You took that chance to make, 500% or 1,000%. You didn't, Matt Clark didn't buy those, flesh gallons at 16 cents to sell them at 18 cents. He bought them at 16 cents because he thought they could be, pick your number, many multiples higher. So that's where the FOMO comes in, is when people actually look. The funny thing is the FOMO kicks in after it's high. So if you wait for the FOMO, you're going to just pay higher. That's all.
That's how I like with new people coming into, especially in the crypto space. I mean, just how casually you talk about something going 5x or 10x, or that doesn't happen outside of the crypto scene. There's no investment opportunity that's going to give that to you. And I think some people just that when they realize, wow, this can 10x or 100x, that creates like a viral FOMO, I think, in some people.
Well, I've got a pretty clear mental image of a future not far off where, say, a Twitch streamer is streaming and there's an audience of people watching, and he's playing in say champion survival, right? And he wins a match but loses a card, and then just goes, all right, damn it, and just goes and drops $600 on replacing it, like buying a new copy of that card so that he can, play again now, because I'm streaming right now. I really want to get this next. I want to get up to Champ 2, or and so he just drops mad bank on some card, and he's like, well, I'm not wasting the money. Like now I have 2 copies of this card, or now I bought my 8th copy of this card because I use it so much and it keeps getting knocked out, even in matches that I win. And I think that's the type of thing that will engage the audience, where they just look at that and go, oh, I can't believe this guy's just like where real money interacts with gaming. Like people watch somebody playing Mario, and they're just playing Mario. They're just playing it for fun. They might be an engaging person, somebody interesting to listen to or watch, but that's it. They're playing Mario, and we've all done that. So the idea of combining, here's somebody who's very engaging and easy to listen to, look at, somebody who's maybe younger than us, Gio, you maybe, a little bit more hip with the young people, but throwing down mad bank on a card while streaming and while playing, and then just like almost showing off, right? Like I could do this, and I know, oh crap, I don't have a lot of DEC. All right, I'll just go and burn some SPS for it, or I'll go and harvest and sell some grain or some ore, and then I'll turn that into a card. And people watching this just go, what is this game? What is this economy? What is this place? and there's your FOMO, right? Like, I want to be like that guy. I want to play at that level. Yeah, that's
and the
just
funny
how I
thing
see
is,
it.
we've already seen it. Like I remember buying Biz Kitty. I paid $5,000 for a Max Biz Kitty. I mean, if you would have asked me, 10 years ago, would I ever spend $5,000 on one card in a digital game? I would have thought you were nuts. But, at the time, I had plenty of SPS, plenty of, other liquid assets, and I probably made damn close to my money back, on that too at the time. So, it all runs in cycles, and that's the beauty of crypto. I know you guys, I know Matt in particular, you're a very big markets guy. You believe in the free market, and the government shouldn't be dictating what the prices are and things like that. And we're living it, right? We're living it. That's exactly how it works. We're down 99%, from the top, right? We go the other way, it's going to be just as powerful the other way. So, get ready for it when it happens. I don't believe like the people that I know a lot of people are like, oh, it happens every 4 years and that's exactly how it's supposed to be, blah, blah, blah. I don't get into that, but I do understand from the emotional side when it swings the other way, when that pendulum swings and goes from one way to the other way, it's not going to be like a 5% move. That's just not how crypto works. There will be people that hop in, we call them hot money in the real world, right? It's hot money. They, Nvidia goes up every day, they think. So it's, they hop on because they think it's going to go higher. Not that it's even worth it. It's just they think it's going to go higher. And that's multiplied by 10 in the crypto world. Like, people we had never even seen or show up to buy all of a sudden when our stuff starts popping. So yeah, and on the stuff that I couldn't tell you or haven't told you, we are going to have stuff in there for collectors, which I think is going to be very well received. I'll put it that way. In other words, if people understand the value of collectability, I think they're going to really, really like this set.
Matt hinted at the addition of different foils, not just gold and regular, but different foils coming up. And he said you can see that in the code. Some people had sort of noticed and said, "Oh, what's going on here?" Instead of just yes or no, is this gold foil? That's been replaced by a different field, as in which foil is this? Suggesting Correct. That there'll be more than two options. So, yeah, and look, it's a great town hall. I always say, we talk about the town hall here on our show. If it comes up, watch it. Then you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth. We'll do a bit of commentary around it, but I don't want to then go over everything that was discussed in the town hall just because it's it's its own thing, and better to get that direct. I'd rather sort of go a little bit broader and expand on what was discussed there. But it was great to see everyone front and center and saying their piece, and the I think having that where anybody could just ask questions. Anybody can ask questions and get them answered, and it's not rehearsed. And like Matt said, it does take it out of you because it's such an intense time. But I just keep coming back to this is such a luxury that we often take for granted in Splinterlands. A lot of other projects, you don't get that. That would be completely how often did Ned Scott hold town halls where we could ask him stuff about Steam, right? Did Justin Sun ever say, "Oh, I've taken over Steam and we're going to hold a big town hall and I have a translator there and you can ask me any questions?" Or like there's that level of transparency and accountability to your player base is unheard of. And when we're talking about price corrections too, Dave, if SPS was to drop 50%, say. Cryptomancer's 1.75 code that's just been released, we don't lose every second line of the code. That code's written. It doesn't get unwritten. So while we've got the price fluctuations going on, there's still this rise in the quality of the underlying product because we're learning and we're growing, and that doesn't get undone with the price action. All that means is that there's if the game is much bigger and better than it was, but the price has dropped a bit, well, then that's your buying opportunity right there because it's clearly undervalued.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I don't want to take it for granted that we have, and you know, like yourself, spur of the moment. Dave and I are chatting, and I just said, "Hey, we're going to record an episode. Do you want to come on?" He's like, "Yep, sure, let's do it." No rehearsal, no notes, no. Here's your list of questions that we're going to ask you, Dave, right? So that you can get all your answers ready and all that corporate mush. It's
Yep.
just, yeah, let's come on and we'll just chat about the game we all love.
Yeah, I'm too old. I'm too old to be anybody other than me. So, you know, I mean, maybe when I was in my 20s and 30s, you know, you had to impress people, but you know, this part of my life, I've learned it's just best to be yourself, you know, which I can see that's what you guys do as well. And, you know, that's what I like about Matt. That's what I like about really the community. You know, we have a lot of people like that, you know, just, I was telling somebody, you know, I get a lot of DMs and somebody was saying, you know, like, I hope we're not burning you out or, you know, whatever the case is, you know, just for the past 3 weeks asking questions. I'm like, nah, I mean, honestly, I love this. This is what I was doing before, but in a more, you know, official capacity. Um, and honestly, what drives me is obviously I want to see the company succeed. I'm the chief operating officer, so my job is to make sure that it succeeds. But also, what really drives me, the motivating factor, is the people in the community, not just the team members. Yes, they're part of the community too, right? And Matt and, you know, Aggie and, you know, the people that have that. But also, I want to see, you know, you guys, you know, do well. You know, everybody in the, I mean, small, big, large. I mean, we're still here. You know, to me, like that, there's a reason, you know, to want to fight for that. Like, it's pretty amazing, you know, that we stuck through. I mean, you guys have seen, you know, there's been attacks on us. There's been, you know, negativity come in. There's been a 99% drop in our token, and we're still here. You know, we're still here. We still have hope, you know, and hopefully, you know, my focus is turn that hope into confidence. And then all of a sudden, everybody like benefits together. So, you know, I see the people that, you know, put their social security check in that, you know, lives off a fixed amount of money and they play the game and, you know, and we're their community. And, you know, there's a lot of like individual stories that I've, you know, and I'm sure you guys know them too, you know, that you feel for, you know, people, you know, and so to me, this is my family. So that's why I'm excited. So it's not a job for me. It's fun.
Yeah. It's interesting too, and we're talking about locations for Splinterfest. It's been a while back in sort of first earlier days when we started producing the theme of Behind the Avatar. Just guilds at the time and so forth. We knew quite a few Filipinos, and you know we'd have them on the show. And you know, you talk someone in the US complaining about $5 for a pack of cards, $5 US in the Philippines. Like, that's a lot of money. And the sacrifices that people were making, how they were helping each other, forming communities to help each other expand their collections, teaching them principles. And it's just, we've mentioned this so many times from a crypto perspective, that getting involved in a game like this, if you're new to crypto, it's an education. And then just looking at, like, you know, some of the stories we've heard from the guys from Team Philippines, like, it's an education system for local people who weren't interested in finance, weren't interested in money, weren't interested in direction, but being within a container to focus it all, and, you know, being brand new to crypto, before the point and click friendly exchanges, the two columns, the buys, the sells, used to freak me out. I used to get anxiety just looking at the exchange, let alone doing a transaction. And here in the game, after a while, we're just talking about swap pools. We're talking about this, or if you go to Hive Engine or Tribal X, you swap this for that to get this to do something. You just learn it as you go. And this is an education that people pay a lot of money for if they want to learn some investment techniques or do it on the stock exchange. And we're actually part of this in this expanding. You know, we're a mechanic of the operation itself, not a spectator. It's a huge untapped potential within that. People realize what we're actually doing and how much influence we can have.
I agree, and I think the people, you know, I call it bringing them along. Like the people that we're bringing along with us is, you know, incalculable. You know, like you were talking about, like one of my scholars is from the Philippines. My wife is actually from the Philippines. So, you know, I respect their world, right? Like where they come from. And like you said, I mean, $5 is like a day's salary there. You know, it's not the same as in a, you know, in the, you know, the developed world. So, you know, it's harder for them, but like you said, they're learning, they're understanding how to manage money. They're learning about crypto. They're learning about the difference between decentralized and centralized. You know, there's a lot of lessons that people are learning. And, you know, I forget which one of you two said it, but we're not late in the game. We're still like super early. In fact, we're still in the pregame, really, as far as I'm concerned. Like there's still a huge opportunity ahead, not just for us, but all of crypto.
And on that note, such a positive note, we're going to get cut off in about a minute. Final thought to share, message?
I just thank you guys for doing what you do all the time. It's, you know, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy the people that you listen to you are here. And, you know, I'm super excited about the future. And anytime you have feedback and, you know, want to, you know, ping me to, you know, let me know something, do so, because I'm here to serve you guys. So that's all it is.
And as Matt mentioned before, thanks for coming on at such short notice. Literally, as we're recording. Yeah, terrific.
Yeah,
thanks a lot.
Surprising. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gio, too. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you. That was 167. We'll be back next week with 168. Boba Fett, peace out.